Table cells can span across more than one column or row. The attributes colspan and rowspan indicate how many columns or rows a cell should take up. For example, here I have a 2-column table, but I have 2 cells that are spanning across both columns because I've set up a colspan value equals 2 here in this TR tag. Here's another example of a table where I have 2 cells spanning 3 rows. Here, because I've set a row span attribute equal to 3 for this TR tag, this table row tag. In this case, I set up some row spans and column spans to create headers or header cells for each department of my, or each section of my table. For example, I have production data and sales data for 3 different items. In the case of production data, I have a West region, South region, and North region. For my sales data, I have 3 salesmen here and the data, the sales figures for each. I have the same data here set up with column spans, production data for my 3 districts and sales data for my 3 salesmen. The syntax for both elements are the same. TD or TH or TR row span equals a value in quotation marks. Notice that this, like all other table attributes, is set up in the opening tag. The number value sets the number of columns or rows a header cell should span. Note that colspan or row span equal to 0 tells the browser to span the cell to the last column or row of the column group or row group. I could just as easily change this to column span, and the syntax and attribute values are exactly the same. The row span element can get a little confusing because it requires you to think through how the cell affects rows after the row in which it's implemented in. For example, here I have my first row set to row span equals 3, and then I have my other rows below this. Notice that there's no column information, but all the other rows after my row span indication are set up in the second column to make room for my row span. And likewise for my second row span, right here I have a table row with a row span of 3. That's going to push all the subsequent rows here into the second column of the table. Row spans are particularly useful in situations where you want to add borders to the table during your design process, but perhaps the table won't ultimately use the borders. The colspan and row span attributes are supported in all major browsers. Let's now move on to the next movie and review another very important technique, and that is nesting HTML tables, or placing one HTML table entirely inside another HTML table.